मेरे लिए एक बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम थी एंड इट सीम्ड सो सिंपल टू डील विद कंसिस्टेंसी। इट वाज जस्ट दैट सिंपल। यार, बहुत बार ऐसा होता है कि हम काफ़ी चीज़ों से बैटल कर रहे होते हैं और उनके सॉल्यूशंस, उनके आंसर्स, उनकी गाइडेंस बहुत सिंपल होती है। उन चीज़ों को एड्रेस कैसे करना है, उन चीज़ों को बैटल आउट कैसे करना है, उनको अप्रोच कैसे करना है, बहुत बेसिक चीज़ों में आई थिंक उनके उनके आंसर्स छुपे होते हैं। बट बस कभी हमें किसी ने वो बात बोली नहीं होती। दोज आंसर्स, दोज थिंग्स हैव जस्ट नेवर come into our existence. They've never just come into our reality, and so we've just never gotten to know how to just very simply deal with things. And at a point in time, those words for my reality in my reality were, if you've taken a decision, just stick to it. और किसी चीज़ के साथ स्टिक करना, किसी भी चीज़ को लॉन्ग टर्म तक फोकस में रख के उसको पूरा परसू करना मेरे लिए एक बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम थी। ठीक है, और मुझे लगता था इट इज़ जस्ट मी अलोन हु जम्प्स फ्रॉम वन थिंग टू द अदर, and that does not really happen to somebody else, and it's just me who does not know how to deal with consistency, with some things with consistency, right? And then just one day I had this thing, somebody just told me these very simple lines, right? If you've just taken a decision, stick to it, right? And it seemed so simple, and it seemed so obvious, right? It sort of hit me like a internalization in my mind that, yeah, okay, let me just try and stick to one thing, right? Even if it seems tough, even if maybe things are not moving for a while, let me just try and stick to it and see what happens, right? I've been just for one or the other reason, right? And for one of the other logical reason that I give things, right? I jump from one thing to the other, right? But let me just try things differently this one time. Let me just stick to something and see what happens. And it worked out. It was just that simple. We tend to think a lot and we get paralyzed by our own indecision. We tend to question things and doubt things, especially doubt things so much uh, that it often sort of breeds inaction in our minds. We are just too busy thinking about, one step, two steps, 10 steps ahead, right? And we just become demotivated or discouraged by one or the other steps, right? We think, okay, oh no, maybe this does not work out on the 10th step, right? So that is where it will fail, right? And we never sort of start. We never sort of stick to the ninth version of the either the product or the idea, or whatever it is that you're trying to pursue. What I am trying to say to you is that the mind is highly suggestible. If you suggest this thing to it, for example, I suggested it that let me just try and stick with it and let me see what happens, right? Whatever you're battling with, right? Just try and suggest it a very simple, very obvious solution, a very obvious answer, right? And maybe just try and keep suggesting it, not just for say one time, right? Just try and suggest it for it, the same thing to your mind for about 10 times, right? And try keep doing what you're doing, right? And in the first go it looks very hard, and how will I stick to this thing, right? In the second go it looks very hard, right? But what happens when you go beyond the first and the second attempts, right? At the third time and the fourth time, what you begin to notice is the momentum that gets created in the first and the second attempt, and then the third attempt, right? And that inertia that was originally there, that starts to break off, and your confidence in the original thing that you've been telling yourself, it sort of strengthens up, and you actually it becomes like a self-fulfilling circle, right? It starts to work out. So whatever you're battling with, right, try to remember that the mind is highly suggestible. Just try and find a very simple advice for yourself and tell it to yourself, and then see what happens. That's what, yeah, matlab, things are fairly simple. It's just that we're not uh, we're not exactly told of those answers, and it ends up happening that we wait for a year, 2 year, 5 years in our life just to hear that very one simple obvious thing from somebody else at some random place, right? It's far better to try tell it to yourself by your own self, without the expense of time.